priest is placed between God and man. He's inferior to God, but superior to man. So what happens when he's madly in love with a married woman? A forbidden love.
My name is Grace, and the following is a true story of my life. My priest came to us from a small town in the Gulf Coast. He was young and full of energy and very enthusiastic to serve our community. He served as our parochial vicar, and he immediately involved himself in almost all ministries at our parish. We've never had a priest who radiated a perfect balance of holiness, care, love, kindness, and intelligence. His homilies were amazingly great, his personality magnetic, and he had a simple charm to him. He was a great man, and his presence brought many souls closer to God. He made himself available to all parishioners and was happy to provide sacraments and blessings anytime. He didn't mind parishioners calling in the middle of the night for emergencies. He was that kind of priest, one who was always happy to serve and genuinely giving of himself. Because I was active in many ministries, he was forced to interact with me more than others since he wanted to get involved in all ministries, so he would frequently call or text me with community-related issues. But of course, our texts and conversations would lead to more personal conversations, and soon, we developed a closeness that was uncomfortable for both of us. I am married with children, and he was young and never had a girlfriend before, having entered the seminary in his teens. I didn't think much of our relationship since I didn't think of myself as available and attractive, for I was much older than him. So to me, our relationship was a great friendship, which I enjoyed very much. Then, somewhere along our friendship, he developed feelings for me, which, when he hinted them to me, I knew I felt the same way as well, for a long time. And I was just suppressing, and I'd rather be in denial that those feelings ever existed. But one day, we somehow got the courage to admit our love for one another, and our relationship became more than just a friendship. We became lovers, without a sexual relationship, since that was a line we both did not want to cross. We took care of each other and spent a lot of time together. Daily lunches at the park and nights at the beach became a routine for us. We were so deeply connected spiritually and emotionally that our relationship progressed quickly. It seemed we were soulmates. Two lost souls reuniting, and we were just happy to be in each other's presence. He would say that he felt at times I was his brain talking to him. I too, when around him, felt so comfortable because no one has ever understood me so well. I didn't have to say much or ask for anything. He just knew how to make me happy. He knew how to comfort me, how to care for me, and how I wanted to be loved. There was an understanding between us that I could not find anywhere else. I've never known of this happiness before him. But from the start, I had told him clearly that I was not leaving my family. He too was also clear on not leaving the priesthood. He had mentioned that if we had met sooner, when I didn't have as many kids and he was not yet solid in his vocation, he would want a future with me. But at this point in this life, he loves being a priest, and he felt God had chosen him, so he belongs to God. Our love was strong for one another, but the guilt just kept eating at both of us, to the point that one of us was always trying to break up with the other every several days. We felt so much guilt for loving each other. We didn't fight, and we've never raised our voice with each other. We got along well. But there were days we actually dedicated to breaking up, and then days we dedicated to making up, just because there was such a routine pattern of such actions, stirred by guilt and the fear of sinning. One night, we got too close physically. We practically made love without crossing the final line, and we both felt guilt and discomfort. He held my face and asked me what was wrong, and I said nothing, but of course, he knew I felt guilt, and he too did not feel right about our actions. The next day, we talked like we normally would, and it would probably have been just another day in our relationship if I had not asked this question. Do you think I can receive communion today? I just don't feel right. And his answer was, yes, if you have the intention of going to confession as soon as possible and say these prayers now and do your penance now. Then I said something like, really? So I should just repeat this every week now? And he never answered me. He knew we were both so wrong in our actions. What he did after this was he never answered my phone calls again and never answered my texts. Before that, I would receive a text each morning, followed by a phone call, random texts throughout the day, and then a long conversation before our goodnights. But this time, he immediately went to cancel his phone number the next day and never gave me his number again. My heart broke when I tried to call him and realized he had cut ties from me just like that. In the coming days, I would still see him at Mass, but I would just have my face down the entire time. My heart was crying and broken. And I can feel his sadness as well. I went to see him during confession, and all he said to me was, "We have to end this. I am a family maker, not a family breaker. I am a teacher of morals, so I can't live like this. I don't want you to be the devil, and I don't want to become a scandal for the church." So he told me that we will never be able to be together again in this life. No more talking or seeing each other. Nothing. He coped with it by being cold and distant to me. His homilies started to become personal attacks on me. He would talk about adultery, lust, and how the only pure and happy women in this world are nuns because they are close to God. He talked about temptations and the devil and talked about sin and illnesses, indirectly talking about me and our relationship. But I did not hold any of that against him. I knew he was trained with that mindset, and I knew his priest friend whom he confided in would validate those thoughts. But I also knew that in his heart, he must know that I wasn't a devil and that I loved him honestly, purely, and unintentionally. He knew I was a devout Catholic, having attended Catholic schools all my life and going to daily Mass ever since childhood. He knew I almost joined the monastery during college, but was told by my father to hold off and discern my vocation until after I finished my education. He knew I wasn't out to sin or cause him to sin, and that this love took me by surprise, and I fell into this by accident. Yet he attacked me in his homilies in that way. I can only think that he didn't know how to deal with his actions, and it was easier to blame it on the woman as the devil and temptress instead of admitting that he fell on his own, or blame that the church's teachings and views on relationships and women were somehow questionable. But I knew he didn't mean any of that. I just know that he knew me better than to think that badly of me, so I wasn't bothered by it for very long. I continued to miss our love and his company, but of course, I knew I had to accept our fate because there was really no way we could be together. I have my family and a husband that provides for me. He is not my soulmate and he does not love me the way I want, but he is kind to me and he is my stability. So, as much as I want to just run off with my lover, I have sealed a promise in a church and cannot go back on it. My priest, too, has sealed his promise to God, and he cannot go back on that either. We both knew that we cannot be physically together, and we both felt that our hearts yearned to be together, but it just wasn't reality. Anyways, within just 2 weeks later, he announced his leaving. He said the bishop from his old diocese asked him to return, and he will be leaving immediately. He avoided everyone and didn't want to say goodbye to anyone. The entire congregation was shocked, and almost everyone cried that day, or in the coming days. I sensed it was coming, but I thought he would give it a little more time. But I knew if he could, he would have stayed longer. I knew that he exhausted his strength and he could no longer function, so he had to leave. Seeing me often was either a distraction or a temptation that he no longer wanted to face. He aged so much within weeks and lost so much weight. He became unavailable to parishioners, and he started to distance himself from everyone. Literally. He cut all ties from people he would normally interact with in the parish. and he started to not return phone calls even when the calls were communal and not personal. He just dropped everything when our relationship ended. To me, it seemed like he too slipped into a depression and was no longer able to function normally at our parish. The day he left, I got to spend close to 2 hours with him. We talked as we watched the movers load his stuff onto the moving truck. He told me that he has to leave to protect his vocation, and he has to return me to my family. Being around me was too much of a temptation for him. He told me that there was no future for us, that I belonged to another man. It rained that day, and it almost never rains in sunny Southern California, but mild showers fell. I felt God crying with us and blessing us at the same time. It was painful for both of us, and it was God's way of showing us that He felt for us, and He promises blessings in the future for this pain and sacrifice today. My priest is a wonderful man. He is holy, kind, loving, caring, gentle, funny, and just perfect. When together, he would often talk about sacrificial love. He wanted me to understand that sometimes loving means letting go, and loving means leaving. I know that it wasn't easy for him to end our relationship. He wouldn't have suffered so much and acted the way he did if it wasn't painful for him to leave me. I know that my pain and suffering cannot compare to his. And I know he fought for us, for our souls, when he made the decision to end everything. I miss him dearly, but I know there is a greater purpose for him, and I should not hold him back from it. God chose him and has invested much in him. My love cannot compare to God's love for him, and I just have to trust that God will take care of him, and God is guiding him. I don't know when I'll heal from this, how I can heal. I died inside when he left. Even if I pretend to function normally outside, a piece of my heart is no longer there. He's thousands of miles away, and I'll probably never see him again. He is my soulmate, making my heart smile in ways it had never smiled before. I'll just go on and continue to pray for his happiness. I pray that God hugs him goodnight for me each night and holds him when he feels alone. I hope God will provide him with all the love and care I hope to give him, but cannot. He is missed and loved always.